What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are talking Arizona ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please leave a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. Those are two ways to help a small channel like this get in front of more people. And you'd be shocked at how much those things actually help. And if I miss anything, please let me know in the comments. Just love the feedback. It helps us a lot. But without further ado, let's get into Arizona. Here are the efficiency metrics from last season. This is a team that was undergoing a change in head coach. Jedd Fisch leaves for Washington. Brent Brennan comes in from San Jose State. And predictably, the results were not fantastic for this Arizona team. There were some circumstances that did not help on defense. They dealt with a lot of injuries, a ton of them really. Maldonado got hurt, Manu got hurt, among many others. Most of their efficiency metrics came in outside the top 100, except for their pass rush, and that was just barely below average at 77th. The offense also took a step back. There were a lot of factors that dealt with this. They had to change play callers mid-season after the Dino Babers experiment failed. And Noah Fafita took a step back, which probably had something to do with the coaching changes and your OC change mid-season. But this unit also did not have a lot of receiving options outside Ted McMillan. At times, this was a one-dimensional offense, and we even saw them struggle against opponents like Northern Arizona, who had a game plan dedicated specifically to stopping Ted McMillan. So it was a little bit of a tumultuous season for Brent Brennan, and it kind of has been that way for his career. He went 4-8 last year. That was a disappointment for sure. But even back with San Jose State, his record there was 34-48. Now, he did turn the program around, at least to sort of an average to slightly above average program. They did make a bowl in 3 of his last 4 seasons with San Jose State. But still, we're not talking about a team that was really contending in the Mountain West for anything. It's a tough program, so that is what it is. All that to say, sort of middling on Brennan as a head coach overall. And I'm not quite sure what the ceiling is for him just yet. But last year, Arizona's wins came against New Mexico, Northern Arizona, Utah, and Houston. They did have a couple single-digit losses to Texas Tech and West Virginia, but the rest of their losses were blowouts. So that's six losses by blowouts. A couple of those wins you had were maybe a little closer than they should have been. They allowed 39 points to New Mexico. They only won by 12 points against Northern Arizona. Just a little bit of a scary start to the Brent Brennan era. Again, they had to fire both their coordinators. Dino Babers got demoted midseason. They now hire Seth Deggy as OC. He was the Marshall offensive coordinator, and he was good. If you didn't watch any Marshall games, he was a semifinalist for the Broyles Award, best coordinator in the country. Runs an air raid offense. He has ties to the Mike Leach system back from the Texas Tech days. So you're looking at an offense that shouldn't be too different, just hopefully more efficient. Again, the offense last year was passing above 58% of the time with a pretty good pace of play, some of that because they were trailing a lot. On defense, they fired Dwayne Keena and they promote linebackers coach Danny Gonzalez, who previously coached New Mexico from 2020 to 2023. We'll see what he can do. He has a lot of work cut out for him after their defense came in 118th in overall efficiency metrics. Let's look at talent acquisition for Arizona. It's a little bit of a nuanced conversation with Brennan taking over last year. So the last 2 recruiting cycles are kind of, I don't know, they're kind of screwed right from the start. Jedd Fisch took a lot of his guys with him to Washington. They're still dealing with that problem with transfers and guys going over to Washington and just other programs. So the retention has not been great for this team so far. This year is the first full Brent Brennan recruiting cycle. It came in 50th. That was 9th in the Big 12. Those numbers are definitely a step back from the heyday under Jedd Fisch when he was getting players like Ted McMillan and whatnot. So this is a little bit of a concern for me with Arizona. And the transfer acquisitions haven't been fantastic either. They're 50th in the transfer portal right now, 37th last year, and 52nd the year before. So what this says to me is, if Arizona is going to compete in the Big 12, you either need a coach like Jedd Fisch, who's a phenomenal talent evaluator and developer, or you need one of these to change. We need to be a little better recruiting. We need to be a little better in the transfer portal, and they're just not there yet. Again, it's year 2 of a rebuild. We'll see where Brent Brennan can take this program, but so far, this team is again towards the bottom of Big 12 preseason odds. But let's look at that roster. We'll bring you to the Too Deep. This is available in the Discord if you'd like to check out any team you'd like. And transfers are in yellow. The year in school, they are to the right of that. How many snaps they played the last 2 years, and then what star they were as far as recruiting goes. This Arizona team is losing a lot. They're also adding a lot. This was a heavy transfer team this offseason, and they bring in a backup quarterback behind Noah Fifita as one of them. But let's start there. Noah Fifita is back. He has started the last 2 seasons. He is a smaller QB. This is going to be an issue for him throughout his career. He's 5'11", 188 pounds. Last year, he completed 60.5% of his passes for 2,958 yards. That was 6.9 yards per attempt. 18 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 16 big-time throws, and 14 turnover-worthy plays. He's not mobile, only 17 rushing yards, but we mentioned the OC change midseason. It should come as no shock that all of his efficiency metrics dropped under Dino Babers. His time to throw increased from 2.55 seconds to 3.14. He took 29 sacks, which was actually pretty consistent with his previous pressure to sack ratios of 17%. And there were some underlying concerns for Fifita even coming into last year. When you look at the 2023 season he had, where he was awesome, he only had 9 big-time throws, which suggested that was a quarterback at least just delivering the ball to the receivers, taking what was given to him, and then letting his receivers create after the catch, which isn't the worst thing for a quarterback like Fifita, especially when you were dealing with receivers like Ted McMillan. Last year, he was the 54th most efficient QB in college football, so they are hoping for a return towards that 2023 form. Behind him, they do add Wisconsin and Mississippi State transfer Braden Locke. He is a former 4-star. He was pressed into action immediately last year after Tyler Van Dyke got hurt. He completed 55.5% of his passes, 1,900 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 10 big-time throws, and 18 turnover-worthy plays. Locke is not mobile, decent efficiency metrics, and honestly, it could have been better for him because the Badgers did drop the 7th most passes in college football. So I'm not sure what you get out of Locke. He's definitely not lived up to that 4-star expectation, but he's at least an experienced and quality backup. I don't know what we get out of the Fifita and Locke room this year. I think there's a decent floor, but ceiling is probably a little questionable. And honestly, the ceiling is probably just raised with an overall more efficient offensive structure, which they didn't have last year. At running back, they lose Quaylee Conley and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Their top returner is former Ole Miss 4-star Kedrick Reese-Cano, who is 6 feet, 214 pounds. He rushed for 359 yards last year and caught 8 passes. His efficiency, 4.6 yards per carry, was middling, but he did have a decent 273 of his yards coming after contact with 28 forced missed tackles. That's a good place to start, but clearly Arizona desired more. They went out and added Ismail Mahdi from Texas State. Mahdi is a smaller back at 5'9", 180 pounds, so probably works in some form of a committee, but hyper efficient down in the Sun Belt. 2,322 rushing yards the last 2 years, 5.7 yards per carry, and a pretty good pass catcher at that. Just hasn't seen a ton of it. 44 catches over the last 2 seasons. Mahdi should come in and immediately play a role, if not handle a bell cow workload for this offense. But I don't think he has to. They brought in a couple other transfers that could potentially handle some of the work alongside Reese-Cano and Mahdi. They bring in Quincy Craig from Portland State. He's 5'10", 195, 5.2 yards per carry on 118 carries last year. He's been a situational back down there, so I don't know if he plays a couple snap role or if he can actually handle, a change of pace. And then they bring in Mike Mitchell from Utah, who is 6 feet, 211. He rushed for 158 yards last year as a freshman. But we'll see what this means. They have a couple 3-star freshmen of decent caliber recruiting, Cornelius Warren and Wesley Yarbrough. At the very least, I think running back's not a problem for this team. I think you're dealing with an average unit to above average at the very least. Wide receiver, they have the impossible job of replacing top 10 pick Ted McMillan, and they don't have anything else on the roster, at least that played efficiently last year. Chris Hunter, he put up 323 yards on 35 catches. And that was his first action. He was a junior who hadn't played a snap before then. He's 6'1", 192, 1.21 yards per route. He's going to be on the boundary. He's going to need to develop a lot. Otherwise, we just haven't seen much from him production-wise. They also have Jeremiah Patterson back. He caught 26 balls for 196 yards. He's 5'10", 175. Originally a JUCO guy. He was the slot receiver last year, 87% of the time. That's where he played. But 0.7 yards per route is dreadful. Ted McMillan, again, was going to soak up a lot of targets, as a top 10 draft pick should. But, I mean, these are woeful numbers for players alongside Ted McMillan. I think there's a good chance just the transfers come in and start right away, and they added 4 of them. They bring in Chris Hudson from Washington State, Luke Wysong from New Mexico, Javin Watley from Chattanooga, and Trey Spivey, III from Kansas State. Up at the top, Hudson, he originally was a 4-star for Oregon in 2020. His best season came back in 2022 where he caught 44 passes. He barely played in 2023, and then he transferred to Washington State where he put up 54 catches for 683 yards. He's 5'11", 175 pounds. Makes sense in the slot to me. He played there 51% of the time last year. Good efficiency at 1.7 yards per route run. From there, Luke Wysong is coming up from New Mexico. He's 5'10", 184. He caught 69 balls for 836 yards last year. He also played in the slot 64% of the time with 2.49 yards per route. But Wysong is an efficient player. He's a unique player. He's actually handled 55 carries over the course of his career as sort of like a poor man's Deebo Samuel. He's also returned kicks and punts in all 4 years of college. So he creates at least a unique mismatch for defenses, which should be valuable to this team and get him on the field early. Spivey's a former 3-star. He's 6'4", 217. So he looks a little more like Ted McMillan. Only 14 catches. We just haven't seen much of him. Kansas State was pretty deep, and he's also very young. And then finally, Javin Watley's 5'10", 167. He caught 140 balls for 2,117 yards and 18 scores in his 3-year career with Chattanooga. Big slot receiver. 89% of the time, that's where he played. So we'll see if he can beat out guys like Luke Wysong or Chris Hudson. This isn't a proven group. A lot of it's coming from lower level competition transferring up. And I think the best way to put this is they don't have a Ted McMillan on the team, so they don't have, that alpha top 10 draft pick who's going to soak up a 30% target share. But they might have more usable players, like more players you can rely on through the offense. So I'm not sure what that does. And we didn't even mention a couple deeper players. They do recruit a 4-star freshman in Isaiah Mazzell. He has played a lot this spring, and the depth chart is one that is climbable. Also, redshirt freshman Brandon Phelps has been one of the most improved pass catchers, according to spring reports. They're going to have opportunities because there's been some injuries already. Devin Hyatt broke his ankle late last season, or at least dislocated it. Ugly, ugly injury. Don't look it up. And freshman Gio Richardson broke his leg in high school, so he's probably not going to be a factor this year. Again, overall, not sure the receiving room is better or worse. It's just different. Instead of the one alpha, they have more usable players. Tight end, they return their top 2, Sam Olsen and Kean Burnett. Olsen's originally a San Jose State player. He followed Brennan over. 6'3", 241, 13 catches for him. He played in line 60% of the time. Not a great player. He was below average in terms of blocking, 0.71 yards per route. I think Burnett can probably beat him out this year after he got hurt. And Burnett's a former 4-star. He decided to return to Arizona State. He actually transferred to Kansas and then came back. That was just for the spring. He's 6'6", 248, 18 catches for 217 yards, played in line 65% of the time. And I think because of injury, that's really what stunted him. Otherwise, I expected him to play ahead of Olsen last year, which I think is a possibility this year. They do bring in a weird sort of developmental transfer in Cameron Barmore from Mercyhurst. He's 6'6", 230, and played wide receiver in the FCS. Very productive receiver, but it's a weird jump, a high jump. Not something that's easy coming from Mercyhurst. This will get back 120 snaps from Tyler Powell, and they recruited a decent 3-star and Kellen Ford. Tight end could be better as long as they're healthy and retain Burnett this year. Offensive line, they lost 3 full-time starters. The main one that they lost is Jonas Savanea, who was drafted by the Dolphins. That leaves left tackle unsettled. They do return Rhino Tapa Atutai, who played 364 snaps. He's another player that got hurt. He started 6 games before he went down with a season-ending injury. He was a little below average. He allowed 16 pressures. So I expect some competition to potentially push him. Michael Wooten played 228 snaps. He started 3 games. He was even worse than Rhino. So that's a bit of a problem. 11 pressures, 3 sacks, and he only had 228 snaps. So that's not great. There's also some transfers coming in at tackle, and I think some of them are going to, or at least one of them's potentially playing the left side, another one's probably playing the right. Those names are Ty Buchanan from Texas Tech, Tristan Bounds from Michigan, and Jordan Brown from Georgia Tech. Buchanan has the most experience. He played 627 snaps for Texas Tech last year, above average everywhere. Did allow 17 pressures, but it's more of an air raid offense. A little below average as a run blocker, but I think he starts. I'm just not sure if it's left or right. Bounds is a former 3-star, only 41 snaps to his name, but he's someone that could potentially play just coming over from Michigan. That's a great offensive line. No shame in not getting on the field there. Then Jordan Brown, I'm not sure plays much. He originally was a Charlotte player, and then he started the first 5 games from Georgia Tech last year where he was pretty bad. His efficiency metrics weren't great, but that was mainly because of the run game. He only allowed 5 pressures. So you have 5 options to play the tackles between Rhino, Wooten, and the 3 transfers. I think Buchanan's most likely to take one of those spots, and then it's probably a battle for the other one. I'm not sure how it shakes out. At guard, Alex Deuce projects to start. He started 9 games last year, played 634 snaps, above average in the pass game, especially with 14 pressures. He's going to play one of the guard positions, I would presume. Center, this is a little unsettled too. It might be Grayson Stovall, who played 69 snaps at a below average level, but they also bring in a number of interior transfers and Isaac Perez from Portland State, Keona Pete from Arizona State. Perez has started most of the last 2 years with above average metrics, just 10 pressures and no sacks last year. Pete is more of a developmental guy. He only has 15 snaps, but one of them could play center or any of the other interior positions. These are up for grabs. The other guard position likely comes down to Kaina DeCambra from Hawaii. He started the last 2 years with Hawaii, and he mostly played right guard in 23, but then he played left tackle last year. He's been above average across the board, especially as a pass blocker, 23 QB pressures, only 2 sacks. He's played some center this spring. He's also played some guard. So as you can see, the interior is just a little unsettled as well. I think if it started today, you would have Deuced and DeCambra playing the guard positions and Stovall at center. But don't be surprised if they shake this up. They're giving a lot of guys looks. Overall, I think this offensive line does lack some talent as well as some depth up front. They haven't been able to spend many resources on this position in recruiting. The highest recruit in this cycle is Louis Akpa, who is the 1,193rd ranked recruit. So they are relying a lot on low-level transfers, developmental transfers. But the bottom line is I don't think we know how good this unit is. We just need to see it come together through the summer. But right now, I wouldn't be projecting a step forward, especially with Savanea departing and getting drafted. They just don't really have a player like that on the team right now. Defensive line, off the edge, they return former San Jose State transfer, Trey Smith. He took a slight step back when he played for Arizona last year. That's to be expected going from the Mountain West to the Big 12, but he still generated 38 QB pressures, decent run defense metrics. So although he took a step back, he was still well above average. Trey Smith is a great place to begin this pass rushing unit. From there, they hammer the portal, and like the offensive line, it's a lot of low-level transfers. In fact, these are all FCS transfers. Riley Wilson from Montana, Malachi Bailey from Alcorn State, and Chancellor Owens from Northwestern State. Wilson has had one of the weirder stories I've ever seen. He originally committed to Hawaii as a wide receiver / tight end, transfers to Montana, and they move him to defense. He's 239 pounds, but he did have 39 QB pressures last year, good against the run. Clearly, he's athletic. It's just low level of competition, which can be said for all these guys. Bailey has 1,350 snaps with Alcorn State the last 3 years. He played 579 last year. He's 260, 53 QB pressures. Owens from Northwestern State, he's 260 pounds as well and had 29 QB pressures. Good in the run game, of course, with that size, but he's only a 1-year starter down there. Basically, the whole synopsis of this unit is they threw darts. They threw multiple darts. FCS transfers are always risky, but if you can just get one of these guys to complement Trey Smith, you'd be in a better spot than last year. They also returned redshirt sophomore Dominic Losillo, who played 256 snaps. He was a little below average, but a young player. The edge group leaves a lot to be desired, but it's sort of volatile just given that it's coming largely from the FCS. We will see if they can't get better defensive player out of at least one of these guys. At defensive tackle, they were gutted this year. They lost their top 4. They do add some transfers, and some of them do have experience. Tyoli Savea from Texas originally played at Arizona, so he's just coming back. Savea had 353 snaps in 23. Failed to find a role with Texas last year, but he was a functional run stuffer when he did play with Arizona previously. And then Deshaun McKnight comes over from UT Martin, another low-level transfer. But he originally started his career with App State, where he actually was part of a rotation. Just goes down to UT Martin to get more snaps, and he dominated down there. So having previously shown the ability to play in the Sun Belt, I think he'll be okay at the least. Then they have some incumbents. Julian Savanea is back. Jarrett Anderson's back. Chuba Maya is back. Savanea played 47 snaps as a redshirt freshman. He's a really low-level recruit, just brother of Jonah, so he sort of gets the legacy, I guess you could call it, benefit to play with this team. Jarrett Anderson, he originally played in 201 snaps with Memphis in 23, transfers over, missed all of last year due to injury, so we'll see what he can give, sort of a dark horse to play more snaps than you'd think. He originally was a UC Davis transfer, played 139 snaps last year. Really average. He was originally an offensive line recruit who got moved to defense, so not expecting too much here. This defense leaves a little bit to be desired up front on the D-line, but, I mean, it's going to be let's just say it's volatile because, I mean, if some of the FCS transfers can make the jump, it could be a lot better than expected. It also could be like dead last in the conference if these FCS players take the trajectory that a lot of FCS players do. Linebacker, Jacob Manu's gone. He also got hurt last year, so not really too much to be said there. They do return Tay Brown, who played 704 snaps and was second on the team with 69 tackles. Pretty good blitzer. He had 11 QB pressures, but his coverage was pretty bad. He allowed 28 of 29 targets to be completed. With that said, he did keep a lot of them in front of him, only 234 yards and 1 touchdown, but definitely somebody you can target in the pass game. That was a weakness for him that needs to be improved. They also get back Chase Kennedy, who sort of plays this linebacker edge hybrid role. He was a little bit bad on defense, but he's only 220 pounds. They used him as a blitzer and a pass rusher. He did have 20 QB pressures, which is the strength of his game, just not going to provide you much anywhere else, at least to this point. They do bring in a couple transfers, Blake Gotcher from Northwestern State and Max Harris from Texas State. Gotcher originally played with Lamar and put up wildly average stats in the FCS. So he's going to be hard to rely on. Generally the players that make the jump were elite FCS players, All-Americans, All-Conference. Gotcher wasn't that. He was just average. So he profiles more as depth and a development piece. Harris originally was an Incarnate Word transfer as well. He's well-traveled now. After Incarnate Word, he goes to Louisiana Monroe, and then last year, Texas State. He did put up his best season last year, but he only played 392 snaps, and he was still barely above average. So, I mean, this position's thin. If Kennedy and Tay Brown can't take a step forward, you're relying on low-level transfers who have not been great at previous levels of competition. So this is also a concern for me at linebacker. Your front seven is probably the biggest concern on the team. Defensive back, specifically at corner, they do return Marquise Groves Killebrew, who's a former 4-star with Texas A&M and Louisville. He dipped his toes in the portal, but he came back. Injury shortened his season last year as well. He played 436 below average snaps, and that was largely because of run game struggles. He missed 6 tackles. That was 18% of his opportunities. And coverage, he was pretty good, 55% completion for 289 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 PBUs. And they add 4 transfers, so they're hoping they can piece together potentially another starter, maybe 2, depending on what they do in the slot. But they add Michael Dansby from San Jose State, Javion Cole from Texas, Aiden Garnes from West Virginia, and Jayshawn Frosto Ramos from Stanford. Dansby, obviously, there's some continuity with the staff coming from San Jose. He's a full-time starter, 1,468 snaps the last 3 years, 64% completion last year for 523 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and 2 PBUs. a little bit of a gambler, and that comes out with some elite plays, but then also some big plays given up, which led to largely average production. Javion Cole originally played with Cal Poly. Then he transferred to San Jose State in 2023, where he had his breakout 49% completion for 279 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 7 PBUs. He decides to go to Texas, where he plays just 31 snaps. Ultimately, he's returning to Brent Brennan. And this should be a little easier than playing at Texas. But even when he was on the field last year, he played well. So a lot of hype for Javion Cole. I think he will start opposite Marquise Groves, Killebrew. And then the other 2 players they added, Aiden Garnes, he was a Duquesne, I always do that, Duquesne transfer. It's like a joke if you've ever watched college basketball. My friends and I would call them Duquesne, and then it almost became I don't know. You start calling him the wrong name, even though it started as a joke. But anyway, he was a Duquesne transfer. He went to West Virginia after that, where he took a big step back, it happens with a lot of FCS transfers. So seeing Aiden Garnes being a good FCS transfer, below average at West Virginia is not surprising. He had to start 6 games, and then he missed the rest of the season. 52% completion percentage for 226 yards and 2 PBUs. Again, that was in 6 games. And then finally, Frosto Ramos. He played at Stanford, 442 snaps over the last 2 years, largely average. We'll see what he can do, but Garnes and Frosto Ramos don't project to be contributors. Unless one of them can play in the slot, I don't think that's the most likely case. We did not mention Traden Stukes yet. He only played in 4 games last year because of injury, but he previously started for 3 seasons, and he played especially well in 2023. 55 tackles, a 61% completion in his coverage, 1 pick, 3 PBUs. I think he's the favorite to man the slot, but just with so many transfers coming in, it wouldn't be the most surprising, especially coming off the injury. At safety, they returned Dalton Johnson. He was second on the team with 86 tackles in 23, improved to first on the team with 94 tackles last year. Coverage was a little bit of a problem. He allowed a 77% completion for 356 yards and 4 touchdowns, only 1 PBU for him. More of a run-stuffing box safety. And then Genesis Smith is back. He was third on the team in tackles, 63 of them. He was much better in coverage, 61% completion for 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 4 PBUs. And they also get back 378 snaps from Jack Luttrell. Not the best production, but he was a redshirt freshman, so that kind of is what it is. This secondary had a lot of injuries last year. We mentioned a lot of guys returning who were hurt. Maldonado got hurt. I mean, they're taking the approach. We're making a coaching change. We've brought in transfers, hopefully to paper over our lack of recruiting, because it's just tough to get that in place in year 1. But I mean, a lot of it's going to come down to coaching. The best unit on defense is by far their secondary. The offense, I think the biggest concern is the offensive line, overall leading you to a middling roster in this conference. Special teams, they also lose their stud kicker, Tyler Loop, who was drafted. So now they go to Michael Salgado Medina. He punted a lot last year, so he's one of these kicker-punter combos. He's the favorite to win the job, but it's still a competition. Probably taking a step back just because you lose a kicker like Tyler Loop. Those players are very hard to find. You're generally not finding them. So what can we expect this year? Let's go to the schedule for Arizona and see what they play. They kick off against Hawaii, a revenge for a couple of these guys on the Hawaiis, DeCambra and a couple others. They play Weber State, and then they play Kansas State. They're a non-con game, and that's just because of, the Pac-12, Big 12 merger. Some of these teams were previously scheduled to play, and now it has to be non-con. That'll get ironed out in the next few years. But anyway, Kansas State's a non-con game. That makes their non-con at least not easy. Kansas State's going to be a clear favorite in that contest. And then the rest of their Big 12 schedule, I think, is decent. You don't play Texas Tech, but you have to play most of the other big dogs. Arizona State, Baylor's on here. They do play a couple of the cupcakes. BYU, Houston, Colorado, Kansas, and Cincinnati are all going to do various degrees of rebuild. They're not clearly better than a lot of these teams, and they, in fact, might be worse when things shake out. Some of this is scheduling dependent. Cincinnati's late in the year, Kansas is late in the year, Colorado's late in the year. Those are all after the second bye. And your early season schedule, you get Oklahoma State and BYU, who are probably your 2 best shots at wins. But, I mean, this team is on shaky ground in year 2 of Brent Brennan. I think the ceiling is a bowl game. And I hate to say that with Arizona. This was one of our wagons under Jed Fish. But I mean, the talent's just not here. It's so many FCS transfers, low-level recruits. You can't be recruiting outside the top 50, even in the Big 12, and turn over 50% of your roster or more the last 2 seasons and expect to compete. It's just tough for Brent Brennan. He was taking over a wild rebuild. And unfortunately for him, these coaches are generally getting about 3 years. And if you don't show some progress, you're looking at a firing. So it's a tough job. He can definitely do it. But man, I'm not super optimistic in Arizona this year. I'd be looking more at the underside of their win total than anything else. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know who you'd like to see next. We'll be back with more previews, finishing the Big 12, ACC, and Big 10 before we get to some G5. And then, of course, real game action coming soon. Until then, good luck. We'll see you guys next time.